So we are just days away from Great Depression 2 because a guy who should have never gotten hired is really afraid of getting fired. See, we need to raise the debt ceiling, which is a make-believe thing we put in place for no fucking apparent reason. And it limits how much debt the US government can take on, which is also a make-believe thing. If we don't do this, we can't pay the bills on the shit we already wrote the checks for. And what happens when we don't pay our bills? Global economic meltdown. Because basically the entire global economy's foundation is the US dollar. Because it's stable and it's safe. It's stable and safe for three reasons. The first being we have the biggest economy in the world. We have the most money, so everybody wants to do business with us, and you can't cut us off from things. The second is we have really big sticks, bigger than anybody else. A lot of big sticks, more than anybody else. And we have those big sticks in more places than anybody else. So if anything ever threatens the interest of the US economy or the stability of the US dollar, we could blow up your country for 20 years straight. Ask around. We've fucking done it. And we don't even have to go blow up your country. You piss us off and we just go stop your economy from being an economy. Park a nuclear aircraft carrier in front of your front fucking door and say no trade for you. And since nobody can do that to us, that makes our money very stable. And the last one, and this is the important one that matters here, the US is like the Lannisters. We're rich, warmongering, power-hungry assholes, but we always pay our debts. The US has never defaulted on its debt, so that means that buying US debt is safe because you will get paid back. We stop paying those debts on June 1st and suddenly we are no longer a safe investment. And that will mean that the foundation of the global economy has cracked and everybody will be trying to insulate themselves from the coming recession, which would be inevitable. And that insulation will look like people pulling their money out of the markets and laying people off and fire sailing overhead. The run on the banks during the Wall Street crash in 1929 where everybody ran to pull their money out of the banks, be like that, except globally and not just banks. It'll be everything. Then to make matters worse, the US, who has the most ability in the world to regulate the global economy and mitigate the effects of recession by accruing debt and increasing spending to stimulate the economy and manipulating interest rates, we will lose a lot of our ability to do that because nobody's gonna want to fucking lend us money. It will literally change the world as we know it. People will die, wars will be started, you will lose your fucking house probably. And all of this is because Kevin McCarthy is a dude who really wanted a job that he really sucks at, and he fought tooth and nail to get that job, knowing that he would be held hostage by 20 radical right lunatics in his own fucking party. If he doesn't do what they tell him to do, they've got the voting power to fire him. And McCarthy could do what's right. He could raise the debt ceiling without these ridiculous strings attached, and he would probably lose his job, but he'd go down in the annals of history with, a modicum of respect. Nope, he is willing to quite literally ruin the world so he doesn't get fired. So how did we get here, and where are we at? Republicans have spent decades, since Reagan, creating Frankenstein's monster by exploiting the idiocy of their base by getting them to outrage vote over things that don't even exist, like late-term abortions and welfare queens. And as they got more and more extreme with the Christian right under Reagan, and then the Tea Party under Bush, and then MAGA under Trump, always pushing this outrage bullshit just a little bit further, a little bit more ridiculous to get the outrage vote from a couple more idiots to try to win another election, got to the point where they were playing with a power that they could no longer control, and their monster became self-aware. Because it's a monster, it doesn't understand how the world works, so it's just destroying shit, wrecking up the place, beating shit up that gets in its way, sticking its hand in the fire, and we all get burned. And the monster's gotten to the point where it's taken us all hostage. After years of fear-mongering over the debt, which is more or less irrelevant, because the money's made up. The US can't go bankrupt. It has value because we say it has value. We can literally print $1 trillion coin if we wanted to and pay off our debt. That would have massive economic consequences and tank the value of the US dollar, but we could do it and we wouldn't go bankrupt. But as long as we make the monthly credit card payment, it doesn't matter what our debt number is. It isn't the same as you and me where we can run out of money and go bankrupt. The US can't run out of money. For decades, they've been fear-mongering over this. Like, oh my God, we owe so much money and that's bad because we tell you it's bad and you believe any dumb thing we fucking tell you. Never mind the fact that the Republicans are the ones swiping the fucking credit card the most. The majority of our entire debt is thanks to 3 fucking presidents. Ronald Reagan with his trickle-down economics bullshit and all of his tax cuts. Baby Bush putting 2 20-year fucking long wars on a goddamn credit card. And then Donald fucking Trump, who literally got rid of the debt ceiling with Republicans' help just for while he was in office, and then racked up 25% of our total national debt. We've had 46 presidents over 2.5 centuries, and one dumbass in 4 years is responsible for a quarter of all of our debt. Now, his people are saying that we aren't going to pay the bills that we already swiped the credit card for unless you let us make ridiculous spending cuts to things like Veterans Affairs and education and social services. taxes, which by every economic analysis would cost millions of jobs, put us into a recession, and hurt the people who are struggling the most. People would starve, they'd lose their health care, kids would get even worse education, have less of a chance to go to college, and veterans would end up more homeless than they already are. Mind you, the debt ceiling that they're throwing a big fuss about has been raised 78 times in the past 60 years. It isn't new spending, this is just paying the bills we've already agreed to pay. But now, 20 fucking lunatic Republicans, Frankenstein's monster, has gone to Kevin McCarthy and say, you go to the president and you tell him that you either let us epically wreck the economy, or we'll weigh nuclear waste to the global economy. And that's what they want. That's why it's a big deal now. It's a year before the elections, and they want to ruin the economy. They want to put us in a recession. Their plan is to tie up the captain, swerve the Titanic into the iceberg, and then go, look everybody, the captain really sucks at driving the ship. You should let us drive. There is a very good chance that what they're doing will ruin your life personally. Like, this isn't an us versus them thing. This isn't partisan. If the ship goes down, we're all fucking on board. Some of us might be lucky enough to get lifeboats. You want to bank on it that it's gonna be you? Not a bet I want to fucking take. They're banking on you being too dumb to know any better and blaming the tied up guy just because he's got the title of captain. And then you'll put them in charge so they can steal all the lifeboats and everything else that floats and push us off the door like we're Jack, even though we all saw there's plenty of room for both of us on that fucking door. So if you're the assholes that vote for the Matt Gaetz and the MTGs and the Lauren Boeberts, fucking stop. I get it. They hate all the same people you hate, so that makes you think that they care about you. They don't. They fucking hate you too. You are icky poor people to them. You are disgusting and they fucking hate you. Might not hate you quite as much as the brown people and the queer people and the woman folk, but they still fucking hate you and they are just as happy to send you to the bottom with the rest of us. So please, just fucking stop, because you're ruining it for everyone, including yourself. Everybody else, write your fucking representatives and write Kevin McCarthy. Tell him, hey, do the right thing. You're already gonna kind of look like an asshole to the history books. Do you really want to be remembered as the asshole who ruined the entire world's economy, all just to keep a job you fucking suck at? While you're at it, write the president and tell him to grow a fucking spine and invoke the 14th Amendment. That amendment says the U.S. is required to always pay its debt. If Biden wasn't so worried about not rocking the fucking boat and, you know, was being a leader through this, he could just go say, hey, Constitution says we're doing it, we're fucking doing it, go fuck yourself. Don't care how you feel about it. Now, granted, that would definitely get challenged in court, and I don't know if we could get that done this close to the June 1st deadline, but he should have done it fucking months ago. And he should still at least be leveraging it to get this shit taken care of. Write him too and tell him to grow a goddamn spine before we ruin the world over imaginary numbers. God, this fucking timeline's stupid.